Shalom, everybody. This is Olivier Melnick again, and I am looking forward to our show today with a good friend of mine. We are never without things to talk about in the area of Bible prophecy, current events in Israel, and anti-Semitism. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. You can also find my devotional at the Olivier Daily Devotional, another YouTube channel. It will be linked in the description, and along with several of my books. And also, you can visit our website at shalominmessiah.com, connect with us, or contribute to our ministry, which is very needed and very appreciated. And today, I have my good friend, John Holler. John, good to have you.
Always good to be with you, Olivier.
It's good to see you. I think we haven't done anything together for almost a month now. And so it's because nothing happened in the last month, so we didn't have anything to talk about, right?
Yeah, other than trying to keep up with something changing every couple of hours. It seems
Couple of
like.
hours. Well, first of all, John, I've got some good news, and I want to share that with you. I've been studying anti-Semitism for 25 years now in many books and conferences. And people know that's my wheelhouse. And I just discovered over the last few days that we, the Jews, actually do not control Hollywood. You know, the accusation that we control the banks, we control governments, we control Hollywood. Well, we don't control Hollywood, John. You know how I found out? I found that because this movie, No Other Land, filmed by two directors, an Israeli and an Arab, who are trying to bring this message of unity and peace in the Middle East. And it really is pure anti-Semitic propaganda against Israel. This movie won the best documentary, the Oscar for the best documentary. John, I promise you, if we controlled Hollywood, that movie would have never made it.
Yeah, well, I think I made this. I don't know if it was. I do a lot of interviews, as you know, but I made the point to somebody was that this narrative that you get from the anti-Semitic people, increasingly on the right, is that the Jews control everything. And I've said that you can't believe that if you've ever driven in Jerusalem traffic. Because it's terrible, it's awful, and it's like there's kind of an art to it, and it doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
By the way, do you know the part on an Israeli car, the part that is used the most?
The horn, probably.
The horn, absolutely.
And it's also there's sort of a, it's not. Don't take offense to it. I'm trying the best I can. I just want you to know I'm here, type thing. So it's not. It's not like here you use the horn, sometimes the assumption is you're angry at them.
Right.
Or somebody who's using the horn is angry at you or upset with you.
Right.
But in Jerusalem, it's sort of like, hey, I'm here. Just be patient with me. I'm trying the best I can, type thing.
Right. It's funny, but because you hear them a lot in Israel. Anyway.
But that was a very good point you made about the documentary that won the Oscar. I don't know what category they had it in, but
documentary, best documentary. That's what it is.
And I think you wrote an article on it, right?
Yeah, I wrote an article, and in my conclusion, again, a little tongue in cheek, and I'm going. It's sad though. I'm saying, what's next? Are we gonna have to create a new category for Nobel prizes, anti-Semitic Nobel prizes? Because getting an Oscar for anti-Semitism, that's probably what's next. There's no end to this evil. It's just crazy. And the thing is, I was watching the acceptance speech, and I kind of analyzed that in my blog. I was watching the acceptance speech, and one thing that really bothered me is the response of the audience. It was like this cognitive dissonance. They were like, not everybody agreed with them, I'm sure, but they were like, okay, there's peer pressure here, and this might not be exactly where I stand, but not a good time for me to show my true colors on it because I want to fit in. So there was that. And then the Israeli...
Plus you won't get invited to the after Oscar buffet.
That's
you know,
just
if you
that
say,
alone.
yeah,
Just that alone is the issue, right? But the Israeli director mentioned something about freedom, and actually, I want to see if I can find because I want to read his quote. I don't want to misquote him, but he said. It's right here at the beginning of the text. Let me see. So he said, "My people." That's what he said. He said, "My people can be truly safe only if his people can be truly free." So I want to just talk about this for a minute because this is the Israeli director, the one of the two directors, saying, "My people, the Jews, can be truly safe only if his people," he meant the Palestinians, "can be truly free." Okay, it's beautiful. It sounds very kind of utopian, but it sounds beautiful. And conceptually, in a vacuum, I think like, yeah, you can apply that to just about anybody, and it's honorable, it's commendable. But let's put that through the lens of October 7th. And Gaza, they've been free in Gaza to do whatever they want since at least 2005, 2006. And if their freedom has showed anything to the world, is that their freedom resulted in no peace and no safety. Their freedom is supposed to bring safety to the Jews. Their freedom brought the death of 1,200 people, innocent people, gruesome torture and rape and maiming and burning alive. And we're seeing some of it still trickling down from one hostage at a time, and the horror stories are starting to come out. So for him to say, for us to be safe, they have to be free, it's naive. It's just from a different world. And then what they're not talking about is that one of the co-director or cameraman or one of the staff member making the movie about peace and about this was killed by October 7th terrorists. That I don't talk about that because that does not fit the narrative. Your thoughts?
I agree with that. It's also true that one of the people that helped make the video was arrested or charged or making a fake video of actually helping people set fire to buildings within the area. I use the scare quotes, West Bank, setting fire to those buildings and then blaming Jewish settlers. And I believe that the whole principle of the unto this land, which is very difficult to see if you're here in the United States, we're talking about that. But and I'm trying to get a full copy of it. I know I'm doing a program with Tom Hughes in a week or so, and we're trying to get a copy to look at. But
Of what? Of the movie?
of the movie, yeah. I've got some friends in the UK that I'm going to be working with to try to see if I can get access to it. It's virtually impossible here in the United States right now.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I tried yesterday. Through a VPN, you can access different parts of the world, which is it's perfectly fine. Except that when I went to buy the movie because I wanted to watch the whole thing, I couldn't do it because my card was not in the UK. I wonder maybe PayPal might work. I don't know.
Well, I was just wondering if PayPal or Venmo or something like that would work. I'll have to check it out. I do have the link where it's at, but
Yeah,
I
me
need a
too.
VP,
Yeah.
I need a VPN, and I think it was on
But
Channel 4.
John, if you watch the trailer, it gives you enough incentive to want to watch the movie if that's the narrative that you're interested in. In a trailer for a movie, we always very jokingly you flip through Netflix or Prime and you go like, yeah, you know what? We probably saw the whole movie in the trailer. So, in other words, they put the good stuff to entice you to watch the movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, watching the trailer gives you a really good idea of where it's going. But watching, and witnessing the acceptance speech and how the Oscars have become this platform for political propaganda, anti-Israel, I must add, is sickening.
Well, I mean, and then there were some people. Now, I don't know if they wore them to this particular Oscars. I think they did. They did last year. The red hand pins. that people were wearing, like Billy Eilish and that type of thing. It's a circle with a red hand in it and a heart. And so there were a bunch of people wearing that. I think this might have been a year ago, though. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Let me just
I
check.
honestly, John, I don't watch the Oscars. I heard about that movie because it's in my wheelhouse and I need to address it and expose it. But I don't watch the Oscars because it's become such a political circus that I'm not interested anymore. I mean,
Right. Well, I think I'm quite proud of the fact that I'm on at least a 15-year streak of not having seen any of the movies nominated for Best Picture in any category that are nominated. It's sort of like if it's nominated for an Oscar, that's one like, okay, I don't really need to see that one. That one's going to be a problem. But but a year ago at the Oscars, there was this red hand pin that everybody was wearing. And the red hand pin, I mean, Billy Eilish and some other people, Mark Ruffalo, some of the big anti-Israel, anti-Jewish people in Hollywood that have been supporting the Gaza narrative, the genocide narrative. This red hand, and the red hand comes from that attack that happened on the IDF soldiers in Ramallah, where a couple IDF soldiers accidentally went into Ramallah. And it's easy to get lost over there because, as you know, driving around, the roads have
right,
flyovers
right,
and restrictions, and it's hard to navigate around. They ended up in Ramallah, and they were attacked by a mob. They were lynched, and they were literally gutted. And the red hands comes from the one of the Palestinian Arabs. Again, I'm using that in the generic term, holding up his hands, which were stained with the blood
right,
insides of the Jewish soldiers that they had disemboweled.
right.
So and so people wear that to Hollywood, and it's no problem. And so I think you're correct that when people say that the Jews control Hollywood, that immediately calls it into question. It's interesting that this narrative. You mentioned that that notion that Hollywood is controlled by Jews died on the other night, and also that the Palestinians want peace died on October 7th. I interviewed Danny Seaman, a former Israeli government spokesperson, the other day, and he said Oslo died on October 7th, and polls are showing that above 80% of the people would not agree to a two-state solution of any kind at this point. And yet the narrative continues. The UN has a big conference in June to push for this.
Yeah.
The Arabs continue to have meetings. Erdogan continues to push for this from Turkey. And it's interesting. And I think the message is getting out in some respects that, there's all of these people on the right, even in America, like Tucker and Candace, that want to clutch their pearls every time Israel does something to defend itself. But last night in the Alawite regions of Syria, and I've seen the videos, they're shocking. The HTS group that took over Syria, which took over Syria in just about 8 days, including taking over Damascus, which, according to Putin, who would know, Damascus was taken over by 800 troops. 800, that's all.
That's it.
Against an army of 30,000. But today, the HTS group, they're all former ISIS, former Al Qaeda. The leader of them, Al Jilani, or now known as Al Shari, seems to have more names than Elizabeth Taylor has husbands at this point, or had husbands at this point. But they're slaughtering Alawites, regime supporting Alawites in the Alawite regions along the coast. Because the Alawites are pushing back. And I mean, you're just seeing the streets strewn with bodies of Alawites.
Explain to our audience what you mean by Alawites.
Yeah, so within Islam, there are, just like in Christianity, there are a lot of denominations. Although, by the way, I don't agree with this 40,000 denominations number I hear thrown around all the time. I don't think it's that. that numerous. But even within Islam, there are many, many different um, denominations, sects, that type of thing. Of course, the two biggest are Sunni and Shia.
Right.
And then there's a subset of Shia, although if you talk to an expert like Mordecai Kadar, he will tell you that the Alawites are generally viewed as heretics by everybody else in Islam. Assad family was Alawite, at least claimed to be Alawite, because that got them the political power in Syria. But then you have this strange alliance between Shia Iran and the Alawites. And it was because they gave them what they wanted. They gave them access to shipping weapons through Syria to Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is a Shiite organization. But they work with Hamas. They fund Hamas, which is a Sunni organization. So there's a lot of division. But the point of this is there's a genocide going on in Syria right now. How many protests at Columbia are you going to see about that, or UCLA, or UC San Diego, or whatever, these college, Cal Berkeley,
Yeah.
that
Where is the outrage?
Right, but look at it. I think I've told you. We were in Israel in March of 2011, so that would have been 14 years ago. Man, I can't believe it's been that long. But we were there. We were staying at one of the resorts there at the southern end of the Sea of Galilee. We did our Jesus boat trip the day before, and we were getting ready to go down to Beit Shan and Masada and then on to Jerusalem. But there were reports in the news that morning that there were riots taking place in a town city called Dara in southern Syria. And I'm sort of like, and that was the beginning of the Syrian civil war. Since that war began, about half of the population, maybe 60% of the population of Syria has been displaced. Millions went into Europe, several million went into Turkey. Although Erdogan announced yesterday we've been able to repatriate about 1 million people recently, because they're a problem for Turkey. People in Dara were transported by the Syrian government. They were transported up to Idlib. Erdogan, by the way, built on that. And those terrorists that were transferred from Dara up there formed the basis of this HTS group that took over Syria and now controls a lot of Syria. But the point is, there were millions of people killed and displaced in Syria, and there wasn't a peep from anyone in the Arab world, let alone the larger world, about what was happening there. There were easily 1 million Syrians dead since 2011.
So we need to understand this. The people doing the genocide in Syria are being ignored, and the people who are going out of their way to save lives of their own enemies are being accused of a genocide they're not committing. It's not even like one is doing it and one is, they're both doing it. One is ignored, one is not. The ones doing it are being ignored by the world, and the ones accused of doing it, who are going out of their way not to do anything to harm innocent civilians, are being accused of something they're not doing. This is the world we live in, John.
It's totally upside down. So let me just comment on Gaza, because President Trump, I think before the meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu a few weeks ago, he was shown that 47-minute video that the Israeli government has put together from the videos that Hamas did of themselves going into Gaza and attacking.
I can't believe he had to wait that long. He didn't see it before that. That was a shocking revelation to me.
Well, I've tried to get access to it too, but until I go to Israel, I'm not going to be able to get access to it. So I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No.
There is a pretty good website out there. It's if you just Google Hamas massacres, you'll come up with, or Hamas massacre, you'll come up with a huge website that has a lot of videos. But be forewarned, you're going to see a lot of things that once you see them, you will not be able to unsee them. So Trump saw that meeting before, or saw that video before he had the meeting with Bibi Netanyahu at the White House. And he came out with very strong statements about, we want everybody back by Saturday. Well, that deadline has come and gone. But then he met with the hostages the other day. One of them was a guy who was released, and Hamas made him read a thing there during the turnover, whatever that propaganda ceremony they have is, whatever you would call it.
Festival, whatever, yeah.
And he said, "Oh, look, I'm so glad I'm being free, so I can go back and see my wife and children," not knowing
They're dead.
that his wife and children were dead.
Yeah.
And had been killed by these guys, and he hadn't known about it. So we're almost a year and a half out, and so the cruelty of this. And so Trump met with them. He met with some of the female hostages and that type of thing. There was a group of them at the White House, and Trump came out with a very, very strong statement about, listen, give them back, give the bodies back, or I'm going to destroy you. Now, that's kind of interesting. I talked a little bit with this about, I don't know when Brandon will post the show, but I think it's relevant. I'm always amazed, and I know you are too, if you look at the scripture portions each week for synagogue temples around the world to use.
The parasha, yeah, the weekly study of the Torah.
You have the Torah, but you also have a
half Torah, which is not half of the Torah. It's haftarah, which means the prophetic. You've got a portion from the Torah and a portion from the prophets, and together it makes the weekly parsha, and then you read it in synagogue. So everywhere tonight or tomorrow morning in synagogues all over the world, the same portion of the scriptures will be read by the rabbi, and a commentary, a sermonette, or whatever will be done, but it's based on the exact same passage.
So when I was in Israel in December 22, I went over to and I think I could say the name, Yishai Malka Fleischer. Yishai's got a great channel he's doing a lot of work on. And he's a Zionist. He's a rabbi. He's committed. They were part of the people kicked out of Gaza in 2005. And so since they've lived in Israel, they've lived in Bethel, they lived at Mount of Olives, they lived in Gaza, and now they live in Efrat, which you've been to, which is in largely unprotected area. Right. Of Judea. I mean, because there's no wall, there's no separation wall between them and Arab villages. And by the way, there are condos being built along Route 6. I don't know if you know this, around Route 60, the highway of the patriarchs, between Jerusalem and Efrat. And those luxury condos are being built for the people being released from prison, for them to live in.
The terrorists?
Condos. Yeah, the terrorists.
Ugh.
I saw an Israeli realtor who was complaining about it. And what do you do? So here you have these people who live in Efrat, many of whom, like the Fold family, have been horribly impacted by terrorism. Ari Fold killed 6 years ago, interviewed his brother recently. And and there they are. I mean, they're putting them, they're releasing these guys back into these areas.
So going back to Trump, so what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. But the point I was trying to get to, thank you for bringing me back off the ledge, is that this week's Haftorah portion is 1 Samuel 15. That is Saul being disobedient, disobeying Samuel, who told him to go and utterly destroy completely the Amalekites. And you remember Bibi Netanyahu's speech after October 7th, I believe, one of his first ones was, there's Amalek in every generation. And here this week, when our president is pronouncing that they need to be utterly destroyed, the Haftorah portion is 1 Samuel 15. And it concludes, Saul disobeyed. He brought Agag, the king of the Amalekites, to Samuel. And Samuel said, you disobeyed. And then the passage concludes with, and Samuel hacked Agag to pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Now that's kind of
But he did not destroy everybody. He killed Agag, but did not destroy the rest of the people.
that's right. But Saul had been disobedient and had not taken out the leadership like he was supposed to.
Right.
So now the question, so Trump's making a similar pronouncement now, and is he going to follow through on it is the big question.
Well,
So
what happens to the rest of the hostages if he does that?
they'll be killed. Now,
So
most of them are probably dead already.
yeah,
We don't really know, and this is part of the game. And so Trump's saying, listen, release them, but Hamas won't because Hamas knows that that's the leverage they have, and they're using this against them. But I'm seeing some Israelis saying, we have to deal with this issue. We have to annihilate and completely eradicate Hamas because they're rebuilding themselves.
they are.
And Olivier, it is beyond me. I do not understand why we don't take a bunch of those Moabs, tell them we're coming after the Rafah crossing and we're going to destroy it. And while all this is going on, Trump's got his Gaza plan, Bibi had his Gaza plan, and they're going to make it into this great, big, beautiful.
Egypt has a Gaza plan.
Well, they had a big meeting of the Arab countries in Egypt. I think it was the 57 Organization of Islamic Countries had a meeting, and they came out with it. I've read it. I've got a copy of it, of their Gaza plan, where they're going to rebuild Gaza over the next 5 years. They're going to spend $53 billion. There's some problems with it. One, they don't really come out and say we've got to get rid of Hamas completely, but we're going to rebuild it. But they don't really say where the $53 billion of money is going to come from. Now, Trump's rejected the plan, but there's this fantasy that they're going to change things. And the answer, and I think Trump is right to force it on them. Take these people in while we rebuild it. And they won't, because they know that the history is not very good. So I just found it interesting that the Haftorah portion this week related to, I think, the same type of thing that we see unfolding.
And it's interesting that we are within 1 week. Today is the 7th, so we're within 6 days of the Feast of Purim. And you can connect, Haman, the Haggagite, so Haman is connected to the king of the Amalekites, the arch enemies of Israel. And so that's another little biblical connection here between Haman and the Amalekites and the Torah portion for this week. So well, I'm let me see. We've done it's going to be a little bit of a shorter show today. And that's fine because we're bombarding people with shows all the time. They only have so much time. So, I don't want to, I can't believe that I'm actually doing a show with John Haller and it's only going to be 30 minutes. That right there is a minor miracle.
I think we should clarify that John's not ill. John is fine. So, he's not fading away.
No.
I'll be coming back strong. So
there you go. But it really is a concern of yours and a concern of mine. Offline before we started, you were saying, Olivier, I don't even know how to address this resurgence, this increase of anti-Semitism. My concern, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that maybe for a few minutes before we wrap it up, it was and it's probably a little more complex than we can do in a few minutes, but this anti-Semitism coming from the right, where we had a lot of conservative friends of Israel, and now it seems like we expect it from the left, we expect it from Hollywood, we expect it from different places, but the right, the people that would be Christians or conservative or both, it's becoming an issue right now, and I'm seeing this thing with just to to pick on one thing in particular, there is, and I want to talk about this for a few minutes. There's a Bible known as the Scofield Bible, and which is basically, if I'm correct, it was put together by Scofield, who really his big contribution to that Bible was not a translation, but it was the introducing the concept of Bible notes. Like today, people look at a Ryrie Bible, Charles Ryrie, and then you've got the Bible and the commentary under the line at the end of the text. Those are the Ryrie notes, and they're very valuable. Scofield, in a way, is very much the same idea. And what's fascinating to me, disgusting but fascinating, is that anti-Semites are trying to make a connection between Scofield and a Rothschild, which I've got books on the Rothschild. I've done teaching on the Rothschild. And in the book, there is no mention of Scofield whatsoever. But apparently, the Rothschild financed the printing of the Scofield Bible, and which was printed by Oxford University Press. And Oxford University Press has been owned by Oxford University for hundreds of years. But it doesn't stop the anti-Semites from saying that it's owned by the Rothschilds. And when you hear Rothschild in anti-Jewish circles, is anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, money, grabbing the money, greed, controlling the banks. That's what the word Rothschild is supposed to mean to the people hearing that word or using it completely out of context. And they're not a squeaky clean family by all means. They've made plenty of mistakes, but not because they're Jewish, because they're fallen people like everybody else in need of a redeemer. But going back to the Scofield Bible, introduced to the masses a concept of dispensationalism, what Darby did, but Scofield exposed it to more people. And within dispensationalism, there's a clear defining of who the church is and who Israel is, and God has a plan for both, and there's always a separation. The church has not replaced Israel, and so this Scofield Bible really helps Christian understand that God has a plan for Israel from start to finish, and it's very important that we respect His plan, we understand it, and we do everything to go along with that plan of blessing the Jews, and and so on and so forth. And so right now there is this push to discredit the Scofield, which I think would lead to discrediting dispensationalism, that would also put Christians in a place where they would go like, hey, maybe I was wrong about supporting Israel, and maybe my Bible lens is foggy, and dispensationalism is not where it's at. Your thoughts?
Well, I see a lot of people who have, I don't know, I want to say been followers or that sort of hung around our community. And I see them pushing some of these anti-Semitic conspiracy theories along the lines that you went. And, you see Tucker Carlson brought in John Rich, country music I like. I guess John Rich is the guy where we get our evaluation of theology and that type of thing. And and I've got some issues with Darby, as you know, but I do think that this the purpose of Israel, the forever promises to Israel, and everything. I think that my view has always been is that kind of got lost in Christian history. But as we're getting closer to the end times, that reality, I think, of what Scripture teaches was revived in the church. It was almost like there was a reformation on the doctrines of salvation and that type of thing. But the prophecy reformation took a while to bring it in. And so I agree that Israel's very important in all this, but you see this concerted push by a lot of people to write. And then I don't know how many times I am tempted to get engaged with someone in an argument about something that they're pushing that is clearly anti-Semitic. And my general rule of acting is to disengage and not engage with them in the discussion. But every now and then I violate it, and it never. It sort of proves the axiom, which I think is one of the defining issues or axioms of our current age, that nobody ever wins an argument on the internet. But you see this slew of anti-Semitic garbage. Ian Carroll, Candace Owens, that type of thing. Ian Carroll did a big interview with Joe Rogan. Everybody's, look at what Ian Carroll said. It was so wonderful. But
It was
it's
not.
very easy. What's that?
It was not. Ian Carroll is
Well, he had a big segment on the Scofield Bible,
right.
it's just not factually accurate. He had things about Israel and things that have happened in Israel with respect to the areas of Judea and Samaria and elsewhere. It was just fact. It's so easy to debunk it factually. Yet people, I don't know. I've sort of looked at the philosophy of it. I mean, I started talking about postmodernism a long time ago, and postmodernism is essentially your truth is your truth, and a lot of it is feelings based. And so I get things from people all the time. Oh, look how bad this is. The pictures of the destruction of Gaza. But then nobody looks at the iftar dinner where the tables are full of food. But now the UN comes out and says they're 2 weeks away from starving. And it's always 2 weeks away. It's sort of like global warming is always, 10 years away.
Right.
The impacts of that. So it's a very difficult world with a lot of propaganda stuff that we have to navigate. And there's, the Trump administration's under a lot of fire now for not releasing the Epstein files or the JFK files. And I'm telling you, Candace Owens has already said the Mossad killed JFK. She's implied that that's going to be her position.
Yeah, and maybe we should keep that for another show because
before we see the things and see now we won't get done in 30 minutes.
No, well, we've already passed the 30 minutes. But the bottom line is this: why do we keep doing those shows, John? Is because until the Lord calls us home, until He comes to get us, calls us home, and until that time, there are not that many people who can be. I don't see myself as a modern day prophet. I don't believe in modern day prophets like some people do, or modern day apostles, and I know you don't either. But I see myself as a watchman on the wall. I have a mandate from God that if He's going to share biblical truth with me from His Word, and through the the illumination from the Holy Spirit, and if He's going to give me, if He's going to gift me with discernment in the area of what's going on with anti-Semitism, I need to continue exposing those things. So I expose the movie from the Oscars. I expose Ian Carroll. People need to know about these people so that they will be protected. And the problem that I see is that it's coming from, and I've said this for 25 years now. And I used to say this, people look at me going like, he is a conspiracy theorist. Well, it's no longer a conspiracy if it's becoming, or if it's being revealed as truth. That was true 25 years ago, but now it's undeniable. We need to keep speaking up, John. You're doing your part. You're educating yourself on a daily basis, if not hourly basis, on current events. We're doing our part because I believe that's part of what God has given you and me to do as is children of His, and that will be part of what He's going to say when He's going to hopefully say to us one day, "Well done, good and faithful servant." We're all serving in different capacities. Your capacity, mine, along with a few of others, like Tom and Brendan and Billy and all the usual suspects, basically is to our job is to continue to spread biblical truth. And we don't agree on everything on the Bible from one to the next, but that's not the issue. We have differences. We always will be. That's not dividing us. It's not enough to divide us as brothers in the Lord. But we agree on the importance of Israel in the Bible and the fact that we are in the end times because Satan is going full force against Israel, and now those who support Israel. Those who take a stand within the Christian community against Israel, I mean, in favor of Israel, sorry, will be also part of will be targeted, and they already are, by Satan. So that's, we need to keep speaking up and standing up for Israel and for biblical truth. And I'm gonna keep doing this. John, couple of minutes, final words.
Yeah,
Emphasis on couple of minutes.
sure. Look, the trends are troubling. I know you address this more specifically than I do, the recent Gallup poll and that type of thing, and just this flood of things that I'm seeing coming from the right that are anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-Jew, and it's increasing. And I'm just very troubled by what I see. So I'm going to do what I think is right. I study this a lot. I read a lot. I think I understand it, but there is a lot of ignorance out there, and I listen. I said this when October 7th happened. I'll end with this. The issue of Israel and the evangelical church will be the most divisive issue until Jesus returns.
Yeah, I could not agree more. This is where we are right now, and so people need to take a stand. They need to, and you want to side with God, and God was the first Zionist, so you definitely want to side with the first Zionist, the ultimate, the biggest Zionist of them all is God. And being a Zionist doesn't mean that we want to destroy all those who are not Zionists. It simply means that we support the Israel's right to exist and the right to the land. So I want to be on God's side. I know you want to be on God's side. John, thank you so much for coming today. Until next time, be safe, be well, and be blessed. Shalom.